I remember me and this babysitter, we ended up actually standing up together and we went to the closet. And once we went inside, she closed the door and said, okay, well, I guess you know the rules, right? Yeah, I think so. Okay, well, let's do this then. And she ended up making out with me and we did the devil's tango. All because we were playing 7 Minutes in Heaven. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another super crazy but embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was in grade 10, and in my grade 10 year, I was a massive player. No joke, the only things I cared about was playing video games and playing girls. Other than that, I really had no self-awareness for anything else in my life, and it was a really bad, but at the same time, good life to enjoy. I know it sounds kind of crazy, because every time I tell these stories, I always say I regretted so many of these things, but at the same time, without these amazing things happening in my life, there'd be nothing for me to tell on the internet. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember there was a time in my grade 10 year where I was coming home from school, and this was on a Friday, and I remember I was so excited for the weekend to basically stay home and just grind out Call of Duty because I wanted to get all my guns gold so I can get diamond rank in all my weapons. But right as I got home, I remember when I opened the door, I ended up seeing 2 suitcases just sitting there. I was so confused because I wasn't going anywhere. I already made plans this weekend to stay home and play video games. So right as I saw those 2 suitcases sitting there, I ended up going upstairs to my parents' bedroom and I saw they were packing still. So right as I saw that, I looked at my mom and said, Mom, why are you packing? Bubba, we're going to America. Do you want to come with us? No thanks, Mom. Can I stay home? Okay, but if you stay home, I have to get you a babysitter, Bubba. A babysitter? What? I don't need a babysitter. Mom, I'm 16. Bubba, you don't pay attention in school, so either you come with us or you get a babysitter. At that moment, I was so annoyed, but at the same time, how bad could it be that a babysitter watching me as I'm playing Call of Duty? Like, there's really gonna be nothing for her to really watch. So I ended up agreeing to the babysitter, and my mom always went to this online website where she would hire a babysitter. And let's just say this site was the most random thing ever. Actually, funny enough, I tried searching for it the other day as well, and it seems to not exist anymore, but I don't really blame the website because the type of babysitters that my mom was getting to come over was the worst thing ever. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember I was getting really annoyed that I had to get a babysitter, but I went in my room, I sat down, put on my gaming headset, and started playing Call of Duty. But as I was in the middle of a team deathmatch, I remember my mom ends up opening my door, and she says to me, Bubba, this is your babysitter. Pay attention to her and listen to her, okay? And without even me looking at my door, I ended up just saying, yeah, okay, Mom, I'm in the middle of a game right now. Just talk to you later. Okay, Bubba, be safe. I'm going now. And she ended up leaving. I ended up hearing my front door get slammed shut, and right as I heard that, I ended up turning my head, and all I see was my babysitter look at me saying, so, like, you don't even say goodbye to your mom properly? Like, are you serious, bro? Like, is the game really that important to you? Wait, don't I recognize you? Yeah, we go to the same school, dummy. I'm literally, like, one of the seniors in your own high school, and you have a babysitter? Like, are you good? At that moment, I was so embarrassed, but at the same time, did I really care? No. Even though she was one of the hot grade 12s in my school, I didn't want to give her, you know, any form of attraction because I didn't want her thinking anything weird. So I ended up turning my head again, and I just started playing my Call of Duty game, and she just ended up shrugging her shoulders and went downstairs. I remember a couple hours went by, and I did not hear a peep from the babysitter. No joke, we ended up keeping our separate ways, and we just kept doing our own thing. But as I started to get hungry that 2 hours later, I remember I ended up standing up and actually went downstairs. When I got downstairs, I remember she was on the phone with a couple of friends, and she was saying things like, oh, like, I don't know if I can go. Like, I'm taking care of someone. Well, I don't know. Yeah, he goes to her school. And she kept talking to her friends about me to the point where I ended up grabbing the sandwich that I made and walked up to her saying, hey, like, what are you guys talking about? Oh, Bubba, nothing. Don't worry about it. No, like, what's going on? You can tell me. Like, I'm not that much younger than you. Okay, well, basically there's a huge party happening and like one of the football players are hosting it. I was wondering, can I go? I mean, you can, but like there's cameras around the house, so if you leave, my parents will know. Okay, well, like, what if you ask your parents if I can go? Well, I mean, I doubt they would pay you. Okay, you know what? New plan. How about you tell your parents that I'm taking you out for a bit and then we'll be right back before 12. It'll be super easy. I remember that moment, I didn't really know what to say because me going to a party back in high school wasn't something unusual. Like, I've done it many times, but the only thing I was worried about was getting in trouble with my parents. So what I ended up texting my parents was, hey mom, hey dad, I just want to let you guys know I'm gonna quickly go to the grocery store because we ran out of some food. So me and the babysitter are gonna be out, okay? My parents ended up saying okay, and that's when me and her, we ended up leaving. We got inside her car since she was a senior and had a way better car car than me, and we ended up driving to this party. And right as we pull up to the driveway of the party, no joke, there were so many different people from my high school there. It was insane. Like, no joke, there were like people in the front lawn, there were people inside the house, there was people in the backyard of the house, there were people upstairs. Like, this party was like full on packed with a bunch of women and a bunch of cool kids from my high school. I remember when I saw this, I was so excited. And I remember right as I get out of the car, my babysitter ends up looking at me saying, okay, Bubba, remember, before 12, we have to be at this car. You understand me? No matter what, we have to make sure we keep ourselves accountable because I'm not trying to get in trouble. Yeah, don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine, is what I told her. And that's when me and her, we ended up going to this party. We ended up hanging out with a bunch of people. And also we did, you know, do a lot of crazy things that I cannot say on the internet. But now comes the craziest part of the story, because what ended up happening next, honestly, was so bizarre. Because I remember in the middle of the party, there was a girl that walked up to me. Now, it wasn't my babysitter. It was just some random girl. And she looks at me and says, hey, Bubba, we're all playing like a bunch of different party games in the other room. Do you want to join us? Yeah, sure. And I remember I ended up following this girl to this room. And I remember there were a bunch of women and like 3 other guys. And then there was also my babysitter that was in there. I remember we were all so confused on what was going on. And that's when someone pulled out a bottle that they were drinking from earlier. And he ends up saying, okay, guys, I think we all know the rules to 7 minutes in heaven. At that moment, I started to kind of panic because I ended up looking at my babysitter and she was staring right dead into my eyes as if we did a big mistake walking into that room. And well, I remember we ended up playing a couple rounds and obviously like me and her, we didn't get chosen yet. And that's when it ended up happening. They asked me to spin the bottle. I spun it and yeah, it landed on my babysitter. I remember I ended up staring at my babysitter once again straight into her eyes and she stared at me. And for some reason, this babysitter like was kind of hesitating, but there was a pretty obvious point where she was trying to make it seem like she was one of the cool girls, I guess, and stood up and said, okay, Bubba, let's go to the other room. Come on. Wait, really? Yeah, let's go. She ended up grabbing me by my wrist and we ended up going into the closet. And when we walked into that closet, no joke, she looked at me and said, okay, Bubba, we have 7 minutes to do whatever you want. Just what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Well, it's a part of the game, silly. We're supposed to make it look like we did the Devil's Tango. So like, I don't know, let's just do it. Okay. At that moment, me and her, we got straight to it. We made out and we did the Devil's Tango. And no joke, after 7 minutes were up, we ended up hearing everyone outside the closet going, okay guys, your minutes are up. And me and her, we ended up getting all our clothes on as fast as possible. And we walked out of that closet and it was very, very obvious we did it. At that moment, one of the guys ended up walking up to me and patting me on the back saying, let's go, a sophomore hitting up a senior. Now that is iconic. And I felt like I was actually pretty cool. From there, I remember time was running out and it was almost like 12 o'clock at night. So me and my babysitter, we ended up heading straight to her car. And when we sat inside, we just looked at each other super awkwardly. And that's when I said, honestly, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. No, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm not complaining. Like, you were pretty big. Thanks is what I told her, super weirdly saying like, thank you after that weird statement. I don't really know. It was a lot. And me and her, we ended up getting back to my place and we went to bed as if nothing happened. To this day, me and her have not spoke about this, but at the same time, she does follow me on IG. So maybe you guys could find her. But at the same time, just follow me for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys. I remember when I ended up going down the stairs, I ended up realizing that all the lights were turned off. I was super confused and totally lost until I ended up going inside my living room and saw my babysitter setting up candles around the Satan symbol. And I remember word for word, she said to me, Bubba, come love me now. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another really insane but terrifying story. Now, it is October, and I have a ton of scary stories to tell you. But this story all starts off back in my high school years, and this was my grade 9 year. Now, in grade 9, I was just a basic gamer, and honestly, since I played video games so much and focused on girls, I really had no time to actually focus on school. If anything, my school grades were lacking really badly, and I remember one day when I came home, I ended up seeing my mom and dad in my bedroom super upset. I was super confused on why they were in there, and I looked at both of them saying, Mom, Dad, what are you guys doing in my room? Bubba, do you know what this is? And at that moment, my dad ends up pulling up a brown envelope. And brown envelopes, especially that have my school name on it, is never a good sign because I recognized that it was my report card. I remember I looked at him and said, where'd you guys get that? Bubba, we know you hide this under your bed, and we opened it and looked at it. You were slacking in school. Well, I'm not really slacking. It's just school's getting really difficult. You know, it's high school. Do you need a tutor? No, I don't need a tutor. I can figure things out. I remember my parents were trying to reason with me, but I'm gonna be honest, I had no good reason on why I was actually not doing good in school. So my parents decided to take it upon themselves, and my mom comes in saying, Bubba, since you're not doing good in school, we're going to be taking away your video games while me and your dad leave for a trip. Wait, what? What do you mean you're gonna take away my video games? At that moment, I remember my mom ends up walking up to my gaming desk, and she ends up taking away my Xbox controller, and I got super upset. So upset to the point where I was just like freaking out at them and throwing a tantrum. To be fair, I was in grade 9. I didn't know what else to do, and since I was super upset, I just didn't understand why they were taking away my Xbox controller. But then that's when my dad said, Bubba, the video games need to stop. You need to focus on school. You understand, yes? Yeah, no, I understand, is what I said, because I knew there was no arguing with my father. At that moment, I remember they ended up taking the controller to the bedroom, and they ended up packing for the trip that they had to go on. I don't know exactly where they were going. To be honest, my parents back when I was in high school always went on vacation to basically have a good time together. I don't really know, nor do I want to know what my parents do on vacation. But going on with the story, I remember as they were packing in the room, I just kept basically being all upset in my bedroom, and it got to the point where I just sat down and just ended up watching TikToks on my phone to basically pass the time. But as I was scrolling through angrily, out of nowhere, my parents ended up walking into my bedroom saying, okay, Bubba, we're leaving. Don't do anything silly and focus on school. Yeah, whatever, is what I told them, and they ended up leaving my room. I remember hearing my parents leave the driveway with their car, and I was just sitting in my room still really upset. Like, you gotta understand, me not having video games was like me not having the internet. Like, it was literally the best way to connect with my friends and basically talk smack online. But then one thing led to another. I remember I ended up hearing a really weird sound coming from my window, and right as I look outside, I ended up seeing a really old, busted black truck pulling into my driveway. Now at this moment, I looked outside really questioning who in the world was parking in my driveway. But then I ended up seeing a girl wearing all black, a really short skirt, and looking really emo coming out of the car and walking towards my front door. Now, no joke, I believe in the term stranger danger, and even though this girl was hired to take care of me, there was no way I was gonna let an emo girl watch over me. Like, mom, where do you hire these babysitters? Anyways, I remember she ended up basically knocking on the door, and I heard her knock, but I decided to totally refuse to answer the door because she looked terrifying. Obviously though, one thing led to another. From basic knocking, she ended up slamming on the door. She kept slamming it over and over and over to the point where I actually ended up going under my blanket and just plugging my ears because she just wouldn't stop. If anything, I thought she was gonna break my door down. But after 2 minutes of knocking and slamming on my door, all of a sudden, it all stopped. I remember I came out of my blankets really confused on what happened. And right as I decided to basically leave my bedroom, I remember I opened the door and boom, there she was. I just saw the emo girl staring at me dead in the eyes saying, why didn't you answer the door? I was knocking. Didn't you hear me? No, I didn't. Sorry, I had headphones in. Oh, well, turn them down next time. Hi, I'm your babysitter. For some reason, when she was speaking to me, her head would tilt kind of like in a weird angle. And for some reason, she just would not stop staring at me in the most weirdest way possible. Like, no joke, she had like the eyes as if she wanted to literally kill me. I remember I just kept looking at her and kind of stepping backwards because she got way too close to my personal space. And one thing led to another. She ended up walking into my bedroom saying, wow, you have a lot of stuff in your room. Do you want to go downstairs and show me around? Yeah, sure. I remember I ended up giving her a basic house tour of, you know, the living room, the kitchen, and the basement that I would never dare to go into, and basically showing her around. But for some reason, every time we walked into a different room, she kept drawing like upside down crosses around the place with this oil that she had. I don't know if she was trying to haunt my house, but this girl was definitely on some demon time, and not in the good way like the devil's tango. But going on with the story, I remember after a while, I ended up looking at her saying, so I was just wondering, do you want to like maybe make something to eat? Oh, are you hungry, Bubba? Yeah, I'm pretty hungry. Okay, let's go see what's in your fridge. I remember this girl ends up walking into my kitchen and opens my fridge door as if she owned the place. And she ended up going through everything, but then she looks over at me in the most weirdest way possible and says, there's nothing in here. What do you mean? There's tons of food in there. I remember I looked inside and I saw there was enough to make a grilled cheese, there was yogurt, there was like milk, there was basically a lot of things for her to make me. But for some reason, she wasn't having it, and she said to me, let me check your freezer. I remember she ends up opening my freezer and she takes out raw steak steaks that we had in there. Now, I thought this girl was trying to make me a steak, so I wasn't complaining at first. But what this girl did was the most weirdest thing ever, because she ends up getting these raw steaks and she puts it on a plate, absolutely raw, not even cooking it, and hands it to me saying, "Here you go, Bubba, get some meat in you." Are you not gonna cook it? No, it tastes better raw. At that moment, she ends up also putting one steak on her plate that she got, and she goes to my kitchen table, sits down, and eats the meat raw and bloody. I remember there was blood of the meat dripping down from her mouth, and I was so disgusted and freaked out to the point where I didn't know what to think. Like, this babysitter was psycho. I remember that moment, I just put the plate down and I just said, I'm not really hungry anymore, because I lost my appetite from seeing that. And I ended up going upstairs and I actually ended up hiding underneath my bed because I was terrified of this babysitter. This babysitter was ultimately insane. One thing led to another though. After being under my bed for like almost an hour and a half, I heard no noise happening in the house and it was getting really late at night. Now, usually I would probably end up playing video games, but since my parents took away my controller, I couldn't do that. And since the house was so quiet, I started to worry. So I remember I ended up opening my bedroom door and I realized the lights in my house were all off. There was not a single light on. So I ended up turning on my flashlight on my phone and going down the stairs. And what I saw was extremely insane, because right as I went down the stairs with my flashlight on, I ended up going into my living room and I saw someone drew the Satan star symbol and the babysitter was setting up candles around it. I remember she looked at me and said, "Oh, Bubba, sorry, I was just making my bed." As she tilts her head once again and stares at me with her crazy eyes. And that's when I told her, are you sure you're not more comfortable on the couch? No, I want to appreciate my father. Wait, what? Your dad's coming over? No, silly. I'm talking about Lucifer. At that moment, she ends up laying down on the floor in the middle of the Satan star that she drew in my living room. And she ends up basically pretending to have a seizure in my living room floor around this thing. And at that moment, I was freaking out because she just started roaring as if she was like a dinosaur. I remember at that moment, I didn't know what to do, but one thing was for sure, I knew that this girl was on some major demon time. And no, I don't mean the devil's tango. I mean like actual demon time. So I remember me being so freaked out, I ended up actually running up the stairs to my bedroom and I ended up packing my bag full of stuff so I could go sleep over at my friend's house. And that's exactly what I did. I ended up jumping out my window, running straight to his house. And when I ended up going to my friend's place, I remember slamming on the door as much as I could until my friend's mom ended up answering the door saying, "Bubba, what are you doing here? It's 9:30. It's a school night. Aren't your parents worried about you? You gotta let me in, please. I have a crazy babysitter. She's insane and I can't handle her." I remember I ended up breaking down in tears in front of her and she ended up letting me in. And one thing led to another. My friend's mom ended up calling my parents and my parents came back just in time to see all the craziness that was happening. Honestly, even though it's the Halloween season, I gotta say, having a scary babysitter is terrifying. But if you guys don't want this babysitter and love your parents, then fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. Okay, so I know that I've already done a story called Me and the Babysitter, and you guys absolutely crushed it. Like, you guys are loving that story like crazy. And knowing you guys do honestly love that story so much, I think it's time for me to tell you guys the other time when I had a babysitter. And I know you guys are probably gonna be like, "Oh, no way, he's just gonna repeat what happened last time." Trust me, guys, this story does get intense and is insane. Like all the videos on my channel. But still, this story is gonna be insane. And like I always say before I tell the story, make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Seriously, this channel is full of amazing things. And also follow me on Instagram. If you guys don't, you guys are weird champ Andes. Literally. Anyways, like I always say, let's get straight into this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba and welcome back to Me and My Babysitter, or Me and My Hot Babysitter. I never really described my last babysitter and you guys still love that video for some reason. So here's me with an actual attractive babysitter. But the way this happened, knowing my last experience of Me and My Babysitter, it kind of changed things up and I have to basically explain it. So I remember back when I was a kid, my parents had a babysitter before. You guys can watch the first part of Me and My Babysitter. That was that babysitter. This next babysitter was, I want to say like 4 months later, and my parents were going to go on a trip. My parents were going to go on a trip and they needed someone that would come to the house regularly to basically check in on me. So I remember my parents would go and ask my neighbors to help out, but that didn't end up working out. So I remember my parents looked online for a babysitter, but they didn't want to find someone young and attractive because, well,
we all know what happened last time. So my parents ended up finding this old lady that was like in her 30s that basically had children and was an old woman, basically come over and babysit me. Obviously at first I didn't really care because, well, as long as they weren't gonna annoy me in my day-to-day life of me playing video games and beating my meat left and right, everything's okay. But then I remember the day when my parents were leaving and stuff, they all like kind of like got together and they started like talking and giving me the ground rules to make sure, you know, I take care of the house and everything, basically giving me the manly talk. I don't know, I felt like I was gonna be like the kid from Home Alone. Anyways, I remember the babysitter ends up coming in and it was the old lady. It was just a simple old lady, not attractive, nothing. Like I wouldn't go 10 feet near her, and if she offered me a sandwich, I'd probably throw it out the window. But I remember basically she came in, she basically grabbed my cheeks and squeezed them as hard as she could, and she's like, we're gonna have so much fun. Great, is what I said. I don't know, I wasn't happy. And I remember my parents, they kissed me on the cheek, they said goodbye, and they left for their cruise or whatever vacation they had. And well, me, I was just at home. I remember the babysitter would come, she would go, and this was like happening for like the first like 3 days of her coming over and just checking in on me, feeding me, doing all the babysitting stuff she should, and then leaving. But then I remember on the 4th day, it wasn't just the babysitter. The babysitter walks in, and then I realized that there was a really hot chick right behind her. And like, this wasn't a chick that like I didn't want to not be near. Like, she was hot as hell. So I remember I walked downstairs and I'm like, hey, like, what's going on? She looks at me, she's like, oh, like, you're out of your room. Welcome, come, let me feed you. And I remember her, like, I guess granddaughter, I'm not sure, I don't know if it was her daughter or granddaughter, basically looks at me and says, oh, like, hi, like, how are you? She like shakes my hand all nervous, but she was hot as hell. So I remember I was basically talking to her. I'm like, yeah, you know, I live here. I sleep on that bed. That's where we do our laundry. Yeah, you already know. I was basically giving her a house tour, and it was so funny because I remember my babysitter, like the actual babysitter, the old lady, was kind of like catching on that I liked this girl, and I was getting out of my room because of it. Because, you know, the only thing that could get me out of my room back in the day was food and, well, girls, I guess. So I remember she's all like happy and stuff, and she's like, oh, like, come sit down with us, I'll feed both of you. And basically, you know, we started just chilling and doing that. I started to get to know more about the girl. I started to talk to the girl. I ended up getting her Snapchat, and yeah, one thing led to another. I instantly just kind of, I don't know, I was happy. I was like, damn, like, this is a W babysitter. She's got a hot granddaughter. Anyways, they got up, they ended up leaving, and I was like, you know, basically snapping her left and right, saying like, hey, like, what's going on? How are you? What's up? You know, basically just hitting her up. And me knowing I was a kid, I probably hit her up in the most awkward way possible. Like, I think I probably sent her like 3 dinosaur pictures and a picture of my Turtle Beach headset. I don't know, I was super awkward. But going on with the story though, basically she like started talking to me and stuff and being nice to me. And I remember the next day when the babysitter came over again, she didn't bring her daughter. Her daughter wasn't there. Our granddaughter, I should say. Sorry, I keep saying daughter. I'm still not sure which one she was, but going on. She wasn't there. The hot girl that I liked wasn't there. And I was upset about it. I was like, what? Like, where is she? Where's your hot granddaughter? She looks at me and she's like, oh, like, she's coming later on today. She's very busy right now, but she's gonna come in later and I'm gonna go home early. Oh, okay, bet. That sounds good. Okay, yeah, you leave and she come here. W. Yes, I agree with this method, is what I told her. An hour goes by, she feeds me, she does all her babysitting duties and leaves, and then boom, the next person to come into the door was her granddaughter. And it was a W because I remember she came inside. I basically walked her around the place, and you know, I sat with her on the couch and we started talking about school and stuff like that, because she wasn't that much older than me. I think she was like only like 3 years older than me. So like she was in high school and I was still like, I think middle schoolish. And basically she was flirting with me and stuff. I'm not gonna lie, she was. I know she was. She wanted me, and like basically I was flirting with her. I don't know, I was a kid. I think I was just kind of like mesmerized by how attractive she was, so I was kind of just playing that part of she wants me, and I guess she found it cute, to the point where I remember it was the funniest thing where she was like, oh, like, do you want to like show me your amazing room? I told her, damn, hell yeah, I want to show you my bedroom. I take her upstairs to my bedroom, and when I did, I remember she saw my Xbox, she saw my gaming setup, which was just a monitor and an Xbox, but still, she saw my whole entire room. And then I showed her my bed. When I showed her my bed, I pointed at it. I'm like, oh, like, come sit down on my bed. She came, she sat down on my bed, and I remember me, I was super nervous because that was like one of the good times when I actually wanted a chick to come into my room. And I kind of like put my arm around her and I grabbed my Xbox controller. And I instantly started playing Xbox with her. Realized that she played video games and she actually enjoyed video games. So me and her were playing video games, and then I realized that midway through playing video games, she put her hand on my thigh. And when she put her hand on my thigh, she was getting closer and closer to me, and I was like, you don't want to play video games anymore? She looked at me, she's like, I mean, I don't see a point of playing video games when we could be doing, I don't know, something else. I started smiling and I instantly knew what she was talking about. I remember I saw this on the internet, well, on the Devil's Hub, but that's not the point. I was like, hell yeah, okay, I see you, girl. And the thing that ended up happening was, well, you guys will have to wait till the next video. I'm sorry to do this to you guys, but if you guys do want the next part, make sure you guys do leave a like, subscribe, and well, follow me on Instagram. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. And you know, it makes me realize that you guys do want more of these amazing stories. But trust me, this story does get really good and really hot, or sweaty, I should say. But yeah, like I always say, follow for more embarrassing stories. All right, peace out, guys.
My name is Baba. I'm still on top of the world. Never taken with your mother. Of course, let's go. Should I make it a story? Let's click record. Got that TikTok with 2 mil hit different with some more. She said she love me, she kept. Should I exit for sure? I got 100K for my life's work, so mama said bravo. All these people on my street, love y'all till the day I got home. I got 100K in my plane.